our co-op is definitely more relational.
Yes.
That's how it started, and that's pretty much where we want to stay. We want to have strong relationships.
Welcome to Our Life Homeschooling. My name is Sherry, Christian, wife to my high school sweetheart Nelson, and thankful mom to 10 incredible kids. I'm the author of the blog and YouTube channel Our Life Homeschooling, where I share homeschooling encouragement for everyday moms. I believe that motherhood is ministry, and homeschooling is simply an extension of parenting. My passion is to cheer on other moms who are at home doing the most important work of all, raising the next generation for the glory of God.
Welcome back to the Our Life Homeschooling podcast. You're listening to episode number 34. I've been waiting a long time to be able to share today's episode with you. I am talking with some very special friends of mine. We've been friends for 16, 17 years since our oldest kids were really, really young. And I invited them to come over to our house so that we could get together and chat about how to start a homeschool co-op. Many years ago, when our oldest kids were just turning school age, we weren't sure what we were going to do, but we decided to step out and homeschool. This was back in 2010, so we really didn't know many people at all. But the Lord brought 5 of us friends together, and we decided to meet in each other's homes and to just provide support for each other. We did this for a couple years, and this turned into a co-op, which grew exponentially, and we're going to be sharing our story today. Now, I've had a lot of people reach out to me and tell me that they're interested in starting a co-op and ask lots of questions on it. So if this is you, if you're one of the ones that have reached out to me, or if you're new to homeschooling and you don't have any support, you don't need a lot to start a homeschool co-op. Really, if you just have 2 or 3 good friends, you can start, and I think really this is sometimes the best way to start a co-op. We're going to be talking all about how our co-op started in this way. So this is going to be very informative for those of you who are thinking about starting your own co-op, or maybe you want some ideas of different classes to offer in your co-op, or how does leadership work. Those are all the things that we're going to be talking about today. Now, my friends and I, we are all everyday homeschool moms. We have all of our kids here for this interview. We had them outside, but we're normal moms, and there are a couple interruptions. The dog we're fostering got really excited with all the kids that are here, and she started barking, which was totally unexpected because she doesn't normally do that. So you'll just have to bear with some interruptions here and there through the video. But I know you will be so encouraged to hear the story of how our co-op started with just a few families. Let's go ahead and listen to this conversation. Hi, Rebecca, Melissa, thank you so much for joining me. I know that everyone is going to really enjoy this conversation. I've been waiting a long time for this because I've had people asking me, how do you start a co-op, asking questions about policies and kids and curriculum, and so I'm just really looking forward to this.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
And you're going to probably hear kids in the background. Our kids are all here. They're outside playing. So if you hear them, hopefully you can hear us above the kids. That's the important thing. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys introduce yourselves. Just tell us your name and just a little bit about your family.
Okay. My name is Melissa Groff. I've met Sherry at church years ago, and Rebecca actually as well. We have a family of 9. My oldest is 20 going on 21, and our youngest is just turned 9. So I have a range from 2 graduated down to going into 4th grade now, my youngest is. I was not going to homeschool. I was a teacher by trade and was going to throw my kids into the system, but God led us into homeschooling with our oldest just a year or 2 before she turned 5, and that was right around the time that I connected with these ladies, and they were starting a co-op, so I was gonna jump right in with that.
My name is Rebecca, and we have 5 children, all through adoption. They range from almost 20 next week. The twins will be 20, and our youngest is 11. And so we have been homeschooling from the beginning. And as Melissa said, we met originally through church, and I guess I can just share how we started the co-op then.
Yeah.
So when we got to know each other and realized that we all wanted to homeschool. So for me, I wanted to homeschool because we were bringing our children out of an institution, and my husband and I just didn't feel like putting them back in an institution would be the best plan for them. But I had no plans of homeschooling at all. I'm from South Jersey, and any homeschooler that I knew was very strange, and that was years ago. It doesn't look that way anymore, I know, so that's good. But no plans to homeschool. But when we met and realized that would be the best plan for our kids, it was really nice to just start getting together as families. And we just met in each other's homes, and we did fun things with the kids. We originally tried to do some academic things when they were 3 years old and realized we were pushing it and trying too hard. So we pulled back and we just did some fun things in our homes, and we switched from home to home and took turns hosting, and there were 5 families, and we just enjoyed our time with the kids and having other moms as support.
Yeah, and those were just some really special times. We were in someone else's house every other week, and you just really get to know people so well, and you get really close, and your kids get really close, and those are honestly my fondest memories of our co-op are those early years when we were just really small, and we were like hoping it would grow, which it did eventually, but I don't think we realized at the time how special that beginning was, which I think is something a lot of, especially people that are interested in starting a co-op, is helpful to hear. You don't have to have a big group. You can just have 2 or 3 families, and it can be really, really good. So I'm going to ask a question that I've had a listener ask, and there's kind of a lot of questions in it. Can you share your kids' co-op information? What are your policies, ages, curriculum, schedule, or meeting time? What does your meeting time look like? So it's kind of a lot in that one. So,
well, we originally met every week, and then when we began having new families join, we realized that it was quite a lot with young families to be meeting every single week. And so we decided to start meeting every other week when we went into a church with, I think we started, 10 families when we went to the church, or was it 8 to 10 families. And that just worked better for those, everyone had young children. So that's the meeting times. And we've just kept it to every other week.
Yeah,
at this
and
point.
that's worked. It's kind of been nice. I like it because there's no pressure. I don't know, it just seems like a lot to me to go every week, but I know some people love that.
Yeah.
But actually, that's what's drawn a lot of people to our co-op, is that we don't meet every week. Some people, there are apparently a lot of people that really do like that.
Well, most of us had fairly large families with lots of little kids. So getting out of the house every week felt like a lot, especially we were all teaching classes and preparing things. So it was a lot of work to do that and then try to keep up at home with, doing some schoolwork and just managing the household as well. So every other week was a really great thing for us through the years, for sure.
Right. And there are co-ops that meet every week. Some of them hire teachers out. And so our co-op, we've done that now and again, but we really haven't done a lot of outside teachers. It's really up to the moms to do the teaching. And so that's partly why it's worked to keep it every other week.
When we started, our kids were all just starting out, and so our co-op pretty much just grew with our oldest kids, and we stayed with them until they graduated.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we started out with this wide age range of kids. It was just that we started with our oldest, and even, I know, speaking for our family, we weren't totally set on homeschooling. This was just kind of, we liked this option for the beginning, and then we were just going to see how it went. But then we obviously fell in love with it, and in love with the families that we met and the friends our kids had. But pretty much we just grew with the co-op, our oldest kids.
And to do that, we grouped the kids into, it wasn't just kindergartners or just first graders, it was multi-age, depending on the subject. And we kind of steered away from high academic, like math and writing and reading. That way it allowed us to do that more easily. I feel like from the beginning, a lot of our mission was to do things that worked well in a group.
Yeah.
That would be fun to do in a group so that we could build friendships, relationships, and support each other.
Right.
And then, of course, one thing I loved from the beginning was anytime I got a chance to have a conversation about curriculum or like managing things at home, that was like, I just would eat it up every week. Like, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? And we would just all, share our ideas.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like totally worth
life-giving.
Whatever I needed to do to be at co-op, just to have those conversations.
Right. Yeah. It's just as important for the mom as it is for the kids. And maybe we didn't realize that at the time, but it's what kept us going for sure. What about curriculum?
Well, I mean, a lot of the moms picked their own. So when they agreed to teach a class, they would, well, in the beginning it was us deciding. It was so small. But as we grew, the mom who chose to teach the class would come and present what they would want to teach, which curriculum, and to the leadership once we formed a leadership team. Sometimes we would suggest something for curriculum, but a lot of times it was the mom who was teaching.
And some co-ops have a decided curriculum. Like they all use the same curriculum and everyone knows ahead of time what that is. But our co-op offered just a lot of those extra classes, like enrichment type classes or things that were easier to do in a group, things that you couldn't easily do at home. So it just kind of depends what kind of co-op you want to start, but this worked really well for us.
I think the question was asked about what our schedule looked like. I feel like arrival and departure was always tricky. We can talk about that with one of the struggle areas in starting a co-op, but we always tried to start our day as a group. As it grew, we eventually had to separate into younger and older group, but with some type of morning time, whether it included worship songs or we did the pledge sometimes, we would sometimes do a little bit of a missionary story. I can't remember other things we incorporated.
Worship songs.
So we started off our day together, and then from there, split off into classes. And I think we've typically always had 3 different classes throughout the morning.
So 3 blocks.
3 blocks.
Classes.
And we tried to wrap up by 12 or 12:30. Again, all of us had little people who needed to get home for naps and couldn't last a long day. With the option to picnic lunch if space was available. So that was pretty much how our day looked.
As we're talking about the importance of community, I think it's so important to have friends that you know in person that you can see regularly and you can encourage each other. But some people don't have that. And if you're one of those, you will love the Made to Homeschool community. Made to Homeschool is an online homeschooling community by homeschool moms for homeschool moms. In the Made to Homeschool community, there are live workshops, there's a library of video resources all about curriculum, how to get started, special needs, anything that you can think of, anything that you need help with in homeschooling, you will find in this library. There's also a live chat where new homeschool moms, veteran homeschool moms, creators all come together to talk about all things homeschooling. If you're interested in joining the Made to Homeschool community, I'm going to leave a link for you below so you can check it out. Now, if you're a member of the Made to Homeschool community, you will get a free ticket to the Brave 2025 conference. Mark your calendars for July 31st through August 2nd. This is when the Brave Homeschool Conference will be live. There will be 20 plus sessions from some of your favorite speakers like Andrew Pudewa, Colleen Kessler, Katie from Life in the Mundane, Wendy from Plan Prep Pray, and so many more. There will also be some live Q&A sessions, and I'll be sitting in on one of those. Not everyone can always make it to a homeschool conference in person. I remember when I was younger, sometimes it was just so tricky when I would have a new baby. It was hard. I wanted to be there. Sometimes I could go, but not every year. So for those of you who are in that boat, this is going to be so refreshing to you. If you're a member of the Made to Homeschool community, you get a free ticket to Brave 2025. But for those of you who are interested just in joining the conference, I'm going to leave a link below for the Brave 2025 Homeschool Conference as well, so you can choose one of those 2 options. I hope you'll join us. This is going to be a really exciting event. So what other classes, can you think back? I wrote some down, but I know you did too. What are some of the really fun classes that we offered?
Well, for the younger kids, we always offered art and music and like a fun gym or outside time, gym time.
A lot of times we also included story and craft time.
Yeah,
as
story
well.
and craft.
Yeah.
That was fun for the younger kids. But the older kids, we've done classes like the stock market class,
Oh, that was so fun.
We've done
The marathon.
Right, we've
That
done
was
the marathon.
fun.
The Constitution. We've done a lot of different literature. So we did African American literature, we did World Lit, we did American Lit.
I had communication, speech, and relationships, which were those were all
those
really
were great.
good. Yeah, the kids just learned a lot about their personalities, and they had to give speeches in front of their classmates, which was really fun. And we've had drama classes, science experiments, which I always liked that because that's something I never could get to at home.
Right.
And I don't like science experiments. It's just more mess. So this year we had biology and chemistry labs, which was really fun. And which was fun because we got to do it together again. Yeah, so
that was fun.
That was really cool.
We've done her church history.
Yes.
That was good. We had an outside one of the dads came in and taught church history, and that was fantastic.
Yeah, that was really good. We've had apologetics, missions. My kids mentioned science in the garden.
Oh.
Do you guys remember that
No,
class?
I don't remember that one.
I don't either, but they
remember
Yeah.
it. That's awesome.
The cultures class,
Yeah.
which, did you teach that one? I
Well,
thought so.
one of the times. I did.
Okay, so the cultures class, and I don't really know much about the class, but in between weeks, they went to
Right.
like an Indian restaurant and a Vietnamese restaurant. And Ethiopian. I mean, so that was really fun. And that was when our oldest kids were getting like middle school age. So we were trying to figure out some things that would work for them.
We also did volleyball with the older kids.
Yes.
And did we do soccer? Did you do soccer?
We did a variety of sports games.
Yeah.
We did a lawn games class too for those who
yeah.
don't love like full-blown athletics, but still being active.
That's
and
fun.
That was, my kids liked that too.
And we've also done a lot of great art classes through the years,
Yeah.
like focusing on different artists and learning about the artists and trying their art methods and techniques.
Yeah, which was also something I liked because that's another thing. We get to picture study sometimes, but as for getting out the paints and all that, that's just something that.
Well, we've done various music classes too.
Yeah.
Recorder,
Yeah.
xylophone for years.
Yeah.
And lately they've been doing more choir and singing, which again, all of these classes were kind of skills that our moms
That
had
the moms had.
and
Yes.
would bring to the table. And usually they really enjoyed it because it was something they were passionate about or, really qualified to do. So they had fun with it.
That's one of the great things about the co-op is because we all have different strengths. As moms, as women, we have different strengths. And we're coming from different backgrounds, and it's just really nice to glean from everybody's strengths.
Yeah.
And it benefits all of our kids. So I've really enjoyed that because Sherry teaches sewing, and I've never touched a sewing machine. So it's really nice that if my kids want to take sewing,
your
there she
kids
is.
can learn things from other people, and you don't have to feel like you have to be everything for your child.
Right.
They can have experiences that I could never give them just because you have great friends and they know different skills, or even the husbands. We've had a lot of dads come in with skills, and that's been really fun to see what they have to offer.
Yeah, we had a woodworking class.
Yes.
Which was nice.
That was cool. I have graphic design. This year they're doing a podcasting class, which I think will be really fun. Let's see. Oh, strategy math games. They had to, they learned a lot about strategy games, and then they had to create their own strategy game, which was something fun for them. Homesteading, hospitality.
The stock market.
Yes, that was really good too. So lots of really fun classes. And sometimes we hired out teachers, but not all that much. I mean, that was kind of the exception more than the rule. And that was when we got a little bit bigger. For the most part, we just looked at what our moms wanted and what we were able to teach, what skills people had, and we went from there every year. How about our leadership team? How did we go about bringing people on? I mean, first it just started with the 5 of us who were starting out, and we just kind of planned everything together, and it slowly evolved over the years. But how did we go about bringing new people on? How often did we meet? And what about like the roles and duties that we each had, which that also evolved. So
At first it was just a team. We didn't have roles. And then we got to a point where we needed to...
I needed a treasurer.
Yeah.
Most of us
that became
didn't
important.
prefer that job.
No, we didn't. Yeah, so it just evolved naturally because it was the 5 of us who started the co-op who were on the leadership team. And then bringing on other people was more by invitation at first.
Yeah, invitation or just contact someone would have a friend who was interested and
Yeah, for other yeah.
And in the beginning too, I feel like we really had to weigh out like space that we were in, how the classes were split up, how many kids were in each class. I remember looking through the roster and being like, well, we've got like 12 kids in the 4s and 5s. We can't have any more 4 and 5-year-olds. So, you know, sometimes it came down to, do you have a kid? What classes are your kids in? We're full, we can't, or we've got lots of space. And we always tried to say yes, I feel like.
We did.
Yeah.
I don't remember saying no a whole lot. I feel like God kind of provided and worked
Right.
out and brought people to our group
Yeah.
that were really great fits.
I think the only time we really had to say no was around COVID time when
Yes.
we
So
just
many.
yeah, we had to move to a smaller facility because we couldn't use the facility that we were using. There were so many people that were thinking about homeschooling then or just wanted an outlet
Yes.
while their kids were at home. And so we did have to at that point. But we did try to accommodate everybody who wanted to be part of the co-op.
Yeah.
Rebecca was saying, like, we just kind of went with it and developed those over time. So as there was a need, you know, someone would be like, well, I'll step into that. And we started to realize we could group things. Like we ended up with a director who kind of was overseeing things, a secretary who would, you know, take care of a lot of the administrative stuff. We realized we kind of needed, what do we call them, supervisors for
Yeah. For the
during the
morning.
day at co-op, someone who was kind of floating and free to take care of just needs that teachers would have, or, you know, figure out, okay, so-and-so had sick kids this morning, they're not here, we have this to fill. So we evolved into 2 of those actually as we
Right.
grew. So just kind of like just
And the treasurer, really
yes,
important
really
position.
important
Yeah.
one. So yeah, we just kind of naturally figured out like these are our needs and these things kind of fit together. And then I mean we didn't give them formal names, I don't think, until we
Yeah.
became
Later.
a 501c3.
Yeah,
And then we kind of had to formalize it.
right.
Yeah. Do you guys remember anything about that? I feel like that's a question a lot of people have, and it's kind of one of those things everybody dreads, and then you just figure it out, and then you forget how you did it.
Yeah.
That's how I.
Well, I think that, if I'm remembering correctly, if your co-op brings in more than 5,000, you need to incorporate or do
Or
something.
That sounds right.
become
something.
a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And that includes like the just fees that they're paying, or if
Right.
you're running field trips through, it counts
Yeah.
towards it.
but you can do you don't have to run the field trip money through the organization, your
Right.
co-op. There's things that you can do to keep it under
Really
if you
low
don't want
budget.
to do that, because you're really just groups of families coming together.
Right.
And how did we go about bringing on new leadership roles when we had? Because we've had people come and go. I think the 3 of us have almost always been on until our oldest graduated. I don't know if we ever took any breaks. We all felt like to help maintain the vision, we wanted to stay on leadership until the oldest graduated, and then we felt more comfortable handing it over to some other people that had been working alongside. How did we go about bringing in new people?
For leadership.
Yeah.
Well, we invited them first, right? We
A
invited
lot of times we
them.
would invite. I think there was a few times where we just really had a need and we just said, if you're interested in
Yeah.
it, let us know. It wasn't
Yeah.
like a complete open invitation, like if you want to be on, you're
Right.
on. But we also wanted someone who we thought was good, but who also wanted to be a part of it and was passionate about leading the
The
group.
group, yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought of something back to who we brought on as far as families, allowing families into the co-op. We always did want people who were going to be committed to homeschooling. We didn't want, that was a question that we asked because we didn't want people that were going to just join for a year and then drop it. And, you know, not that everyone had to have everything figured out or had to know exactly, but we really did want people that were more long-term so that it was for the benefit of our co-op, because it's just too hard to have a constant ebb and flow of people coming and going. It's just nice to have committed families. So those were the kinds of families we looked for, were the long-term commitments as much as possible. So how often did we meet as leadership? It was pretty much once a month, right?
Ooh, I'm not even sure
I
that
don't think,
often.
no, I think it was
Okay.
more like quarterly.
Okay.
But
thi-
then now they meet once a month.
Okay.
So maybe at the end of when you were on leadership, they started meeting once a month. So I
Okay.
think you were the last 2. stay on.
Yeah. And our leadership meetings were not just for planning leadership. It really was just like a fun mom's night.
Yeah,
It's my
a lot of times.
favorite night of the quarter.
Yeah, it was fun.
We all just look forward to getting together.
Yeah.
We went out for coffee
And then we would say, oh wait, we should talk about.
Well, and really, I think because we only met quarterly, we would spend quite a bit of time at those meetings, partly just socially, and
to
then
get it all
to get
get
through
home really
things,
late. Yeah.
which I think going to monthly meetings is a little more efficient as far
Yeah.
as staying on top of things. I mean, we obviously communicated a lot between the meetings, but it was a little challenging to stay on top of things with just meeting quarterly.
Yeah.
It just was kind of where we were at with our season of life and trying to get everybody together.
And probably with the co-op getting bigger, that made more of a need for meeting monthly.
Yes.
When we were smaller, it wasn't as big of a deal that we meet so often. What were some of the challenges of getting started? So it's almost hard to think back because it was so long ago, but I do remember we had a hard time finding a church. That's one way that churches can really support co-ops is just to offer your building at a reasonable cost. That was such a huge blessing when Grace Church opened up their doors to us really as a ministry. But there were times when we had trouble finding a church.
Yeah, it was hard sometimes. I mean, as we grew, we loved the first church we were at, but as we grew, it was small and we needed something larger.
There wasn't a gym, which was a big downfall.
And we live in an area with a lot of churches, and we had a really hard time finding a church that was willing to host us, which was discouraging.
And to rent at an affordable rate for our group. I mean, most of our families with homeschooling were one-income families.
Right.
So we really tried hard to keep any fees that we had as low as possible.
Right.
And that meant trying to find a reasonable rental opportunity. So
yeah, that would be a huge blessing to co-ops if churches were more willing.
in the end, I feel like God always provided a place for us,
Yeah.
even if it wasn't our ideal. And I feel like for the most part, the relationships we had, I mean, we were in 1 to 4 different churches throughout the years.
Yeah.
One was just a COVID temporary change, which that church was so gracious in allowing us to meet during that year. So yeah, we went through 4 different buildings, partly because of size, partly because of just other circumstances, but God always provided a place, even though it was challenging at times.
Can you think of any other challenges we had in the beginning?
Well, I think when we started adding new families, just knowing what paperwork we need, like legal items, so a liability form, and do we make every family sign a statement of faith? Do both parents have to sign it, or just one parent? You know, those are all questions that whoever's starting the co-op, they need to decide together what that should look like.
And also what safety measures are in place, the co-op
Right.
morning. Are doors locked? Are they not?
Yeah.
Who is on campus? Who's the emergency contacts? What are our emergency procedures? All little things that you don't want to have to think about, but are part of it.
Right. Right, because when we first started, it was just 5 families getting together.
Right.
Now we're adding more families. We're in a church, and we're like, oh, there's so much more to think about.
Yeah.
And there is, but it's worth it.
Yeah. And one thing I think about when you're small, there are a lot less decisions that need to be made. So that does make it somewhat easier. As you grow, the growing pains can be challenging. And I remember, I think it was Unlap that said that when you're on a leadership team at a co-op, it is kind of like a marriage because you're working with people that are different than you, and especially as you grow, like even being very close friends, there's always going to be decisions and things that are tough, and and so there was some of that. But I think the important thing is that, especially when you're smaller, you are a group of families that all want what's best for your kids. So you're completely invested. And the larger we grew, we did have some people that saw it more as like, we just want a place where we can drop off our kids, give our kids, what do you have to offer, basically, rather than how can we come together and create something great for our kids. I think being on the same page with your leadership crew is just so important, and I feel like that's something we always had, was just this unity, and specifically because we're sisters in Christ and we have that in common. But just knowing ahead of time that there are going to be things that are tough, and that you just, same as in your marriage, you give and take, and you learn to work with people, and a lot of times you make decisions and maybe it's not always what you would exactly prefer for your kids, but it's good for the whole co-op, so you go with that.
And we did have some conflicts in leadership throughout the years that we had to work through. We had to have special meetings, special phone calls, and talk through things and sort them out. But I feel like we were always able to work through it.
I think, I mean, if I can get specific, one of the times I remember, it wasn't a conflict, it was just an intense conversation, is when we were talking about how do we incorporate kids with special needs into the co-op. Do you remember that?
Yes. I don't remember.
We were
that
at your
specifically.
parents' house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We ordered Chinese food.
Because who wants to cook?
Yeah. And it was a pretty intense conversation. We had a family come, and they had a daughter with special needs, and she needed somebody to be with her constantly. And it was just a matter of, well, what is that going to look like going forward?
Yeah.
Should we have accommodations for kids with special? So, you know, those are just things that you have to, you know, think about. And maybe it would never come to pass, but if you have a family inquire, you want to have some framework for how you might handle that.
And it really highlighted some of our mission too, because through the years, while we needed to consider the whole group, we also really wanted to meet our families and their needs and their specific situations. So we did work really hard to be flexible with kids and families that just didn't look maybe as typical as everybody else.
Right.
And I feel like that was a strength of our co-op, that we were able to
definitely.
do that.
It was. Our co-op is definitely more relational.
Yes.
That's how it started, and that's pretty much where we want to stay. We want to have strong relationships. Can you think of anything that didn't work? Anything we tried that was just a flop? Well, we tried academics at first. That didn't work.
That didn't work with
clearly didn't
3-year-olds.
work. And we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, really, we had no other co-ops to really look at. We started teaching them their ABCs, and then we realized, oh, kids all learn to read at different ages and stages. This is not helping at all. And that's when we went to more of the content type things. And art and story time, music, stuff like that.
There was, I feel like there was a time, I don't remember which location, but we really wanted to do lunch every week.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we were doing it in building.
Yes.
And we realized it was just too much because there would always be one leadership or one or two families that had to stay really long and then like re-clean the space. And it just was too much. So I think we went to like, if it's nice out, you can stay outside. The facility is not open at all. So that was something we kind of experimented with. And I think it looked different years too. Depending on the facility, just what we're able to handle that year.
Yeah, and that is one thing with a co-op that's a little different from a school because you don't meet so regularly. Sometimes I think it took longer to iron things out. Like the first couple times we met sometimes seemed rocky, and then by the end of the year it was really true, but it's like you don't meet every day.
If I remember correctly, we always planned a leadership meeting after 2 co-ops.
Yes.
So that we could bring all of the like, hey, this is not working, this is not working. What are we going to do about this?
Morning, like arrival and departure.
Yes.
Those were always...
That is always very tricky.
And there's always families that are absent.
Or late.
Every
Blow
week.
out right before you go out the door.
Yeah, because you have families with young children, and that's just always unpredictable. I know there are families that are thinking about starting a co-op, and some that are starting in this next school year. What advice would you give them? What would you tell a new family or just a couple families that are going to try getting together to meet?
Well, I would say start out with just a small group of people, of like-minded people, and decide what you want to be that year and be willing to grow together. So,
and it doesn't have to be a lot of people.
No.
It could just be 2 families, 3 families. It doesn't have to be this super planned out thing. I mean, it's good to have an idea of where you're going and to know a little bit about it, but it doesn't have to be, it can just be getting together for friendship, and then you can figure out what you're doing as you go along.
One of the things I loved that we did early on was nature walks. Because we met, we did them a lot in the summer, I guess, and then we started doing them on the off weeks of our co-op, and those were such a fun time. We would try to sometimes incorporate a nature lesson of something like, we were observing or whatever, but the kids really built relationships. They were outside running around. There were creek days, park days, for those of us who don't love the woods.
who doesn't love the woods?
But those were such a fun thing to do early on too, because they were low stress. As far as meeting together, I would say don't try to overdo it in your first year.
Yeah.
Like pick one or two subjects, content areas, like little art lesson, and I don't know, maybe reading a book together or studying a certain time period of history. I don't know, something just simple, one or two things that you can focus on and just focus on being together and building relationships.
And the kids just want time to play and talk too.
Yes.
And that's something sometimes I think we moms forget. We want to have like all these things figured out. And then my kids have complained sometimes, we just don't have enough time to talk. So that's important to them too. They want time to get together. And you mentioned the nature walks. That is a memory I hope my kids have for when they're in their adulthood, is they spend every other week in the summer out in the woods with their friends. I just think it's such a great childhood. So glad that we did that. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I just know this is going to be really encouraging to a lot of you out there. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sherry.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. It warmed my heart just reflecting back to the early years of our homeschool. Our community has always been so close, and I'm so thankful for that, and thankful that the Lord brought these great friendships into my life and into our kids' lives. And I can just say, looking back at our homeschooling experience, the Lord provides. He is so good. So if you are looking for something like this, bring it to the Lord in prayer. He is the great provider. And think about starting a homeschool community yourself. It's easier than you think. You just need a few good friends, and you start simply. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can also find me on the blog ourlifehomeschooling.com, where I share book lists, free copy work, and a plethora of resources to help you get started and continue in homeschooling. You can also find me on YouTube, where I share our life every week, what it looks like in our homeschool. I'd love to see you over there. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week on the Our Life Homeschooling podcast. Have a great week.